Hello everyone, I am Nafisha Parveen and today we will know about diabetes. So first of all, there is diabetes insipidus. Diabetes insipidus is a rare condition and it is not related to diabetes mellitus. Diabetes insipidus is caused by problems with a hormone called vasopressin or antidiuretic hormone. This hormone is produced by hypothalamus and stored in posterior pituitary gland. Whenever there is a problem with antidiuretic hormone, the kidneys cannot make enough concentrated urine and excess water is passed from our body. Two main symptoms of diabetes insipidus are extreme thirst and extreme urination. Extreme thirst is also called polydipsia and extreme urination is also called polyuria. Complications of diabetes insipidus are dehydration and electrolyte imbalance. Next, there is diabetes mellitus. Diabetes mellitus is a group of disorders which is characterized by high blood glucose concentration, resulting from defects in insulin secretion, insulin action, or both, which leads over time to serious damage to the heart, blood vessels, eyes, kidneys, and nerves. There are three types of diabetes mellitus: type 1, type 2, and gestational diabetes mellitus. Type 1 diabetes mellitus is also known as insulin dependent diabetes mellitus. This is basically seen in children and adolescents, so it is also called juvenile onset of diabetes mellitus. This type of diabetes mellitus is less common than type 2 diabetes. It is a chronic condition in which our pancreas produces little or no insulin by itself. It is a genetic abnormality where the tolerance to its own body cells is diminished or absent. In this case, body's own T cells attack the pancreatic cells, especially beta cells. Diminished beta cells decreases endogenous insulin production, and that's why glucose is piles up in blood because it will not be able to enter body cells. In type 2 diabetes, in type 1 diabetes, daily doses of insulin is required to survive. Next, type 2 diabetes mellitus. It is also known as non-insulin dependent diabetes mellitus. In type 2 diabetes, the body does not produce enough insulin or the cells ignore the insulin. Both genetic and environmental elements affects beta cells functions and tissue insulin sensitivity. It usually occurs in adults. Hyperglycemia can trigger both beta cell dysfunction and insulin resistance. It usually do not require daily doses of insulin to survive. Risk factors of diabetes: excess body weight, unhealthy diet habits, physical inactivity, tobacco uses, smoking, etc. In the case of type 1 diabetes, the body does not produce any insulin, and in the case of type 2 diabetes, the body does not produce enough insulin or the insulin does not utilized properly. Next, gestational diabetes mellitus. Gestational diabetes mellitus is high blood sugar during pregnancy of a mother. It is a high risk of developing future type 2 diabetes. Gestational diabetes may improve or disappear after delivery. If it left untreated, it can damage the health of the fetus or mother. Next, insulin. What is insulin? It is a hormone which is secreted from beta cells, which is found in the islets of Langerhans in our pancreas, and it helps in controlling our blood sugar level. Insulin moves glucose from our bloodstream into the body's cells to make energy. What is the insulin role to control our blood sugar level? First of all, it inhibits the breakdown of glycogen. It stimulates the storage of glucose in the form of glycogen, and it stimulates the transport of glucose into fat and muscle cells. What is insulin resistance? It is a condition in which the cells fail to respond insulin properly. As the need for insulin rises, the pancreas gradually loses its ability to produce it. Now, what is hyperglycemia? This condition happens when there is too much sugar in our blood. It is also called high blood sugar or high blood glucose. This happens when our body has too little insulin or if our body cannot use insulin properly. Severe hyperglycemia can also lead to an effect that is diabetic ketoacidosis, which is life-threatening complications. Now, symptoms of diabetes: frequent urination or polyuria, increased hunger, which is also known as polyphagia, excessive thirst, which is also known as polydipsia, glycosuria means glucose in urine, blurred vision, weight loss, tingling sensation in the hands and feet, slow healing of wounds, fatigue, headache, itchy skin. These are the symptoms of diabetes. Now, what is the complications of diabetes? First, diabetic ketoacidosis. It develops when our body does not have enough insulin to allow blood sugar into our cells for use as energy. Instead, liver breaks down fat for fuel and ketone is produces in our body, and these ketones are stored in blood, and when too many ketones are produced too fast, they can build up to dangerous levels in our body. Untreated diabetes leads to ketoacidosis and further it causes diabetic coma. Next complications is cardiovascular diseases. Coronary artery disease with angina, heart attack, stroke and atherosclerosis means narrowing of arteries. Next complications is diabetic neuropathy. Too much sugar can injure the walls of the tiny blood vessels that nourishes the nerves, especially in the legs. Poor blood flow to the extremities means legs and hands, and nerve damage can cause tingling, numbness, burning or pain that usually begins at the tips of the toes or fingers and gradually it spreads upwards. Next complications is diabetic nephropathy. The kidney holds millions of tiny blood vessels that filter waste from the blood. Diabetes can damage these delicate filtering systems. Next, diabetic retinopathy. Diabetes can damage the blood vessels of the eye, which could lead to blindness and other vision problems such as cataracts and glaucoma. Next complications is diabetes leads to skin problems including bacterial and fungal infections. Next complications is hearing problems. Type 2 diabetes may increase the risk of dementia, depression, damage to the nerves related to digestion can cause problems with nausea, vomiting, diarrhea, or constipation. Now, how we diagnose the diabetes? There is some tests. So, first test is fasting blood sugar test. A fasting blood sugar level less than 70 to 99 mg per deciliter is normal. 100 to 125 mg per deciliter is pre-diabetes and 126 mg per deciliter or above is diabetes. Next test is HbA1c test. It measures the percentage of blood sugar attached to hemoglobin. It is also called glycated hemoglobin test. Higher the blood sugar levels, more hemoglobin attached with sugar. A1C level below 5.7% is normal. 6.5% or higher on two separate tests is suggests diabetes and 5.7 to 6.4% is pre-diabetes. Random blood sugar test. A blood sample will be taken at a random time. Blood sugar level of 200 mg per deciliter to 11.1 millimole per liter or higher suggests it is diabetes. Glucose tolerance test. This test should be done after an overnight fast of 8 to 10 hours and comprises of two blood samples, fasting and 2 hours after glucose load. Blood sugar level is measured. Less than 140 mg per deciliter is normal, 140 to 199 mg per deciliter is prediabetes, more than 200 mg per deciliter is diabetes. Now, what is the lifestyle we should follow in the case of diabetes? Improve health through optimum nutrition, maintain ideal body weight, maintain glycemic control, achieve optimum blood lipid levels, to individualize the diet according to complications and comorbidities, achieve optimal physical activity, advise other behavioral changes for smoking, tobacco products, and alcohol, and advocate stress management. Now, what is the dietary management? Energy. Sufficient energy to attain or maintain a reasonable body weight for adults, normal growth and development for children and adolescents, to meet the increased needs during pregnancy and lactation and recovery from illness, energy is required. Carbohydrate. 50 to 60 55 to 60% of energy from carbohydrate is an ideal recommendation. It should be complex in nature. Carbohydrates from foods high in fiber should be given. For example, whole grain cereals, legumes, peas, beans, oats, barley, and fruits with low GI and low GL are consumed. Proteins. 12 to 15% of the total energy from proteins should be given. Proteins from vegetable sources like pulses, soybean, grams, peas, as well as from low fat milk, low fat curds, fish, and lean meats are recommended. Fats. Fats should provide 20 to 30% of total energy intake for people with diabetes. Oils rich in omega 6 polyunsaturated fatty acids like safflower, sunflower, cottonseed should be mixed with oils rich in omega 3 like soy and mustard to maintain omega 6 to omega 3 ratio between 5 to 10. In people with type 2 diabetes, MUFA or monounsaturated fatty acids, rich cooking oil, and nuts in moderation may benefit glycemic control and CVD risk factors. Avoid trans fats and saturated fat in the case of diabetes. Fiber recommendation for general population is 40 gram per day in 2000 kilocalories. Salt. Sodium intake recommendations for people with diabetes are the same as that for the general population. Added salt should be less than 5 gram per day. For persons with hypertension and diabetes, the intake should be reduced to less than 3 gram per day. In diabetes, all preserved and processed foods such as pickles, chutneys should be restricted, and avoid simple sugars, sweet beverages, and sweeteners. It is best to avoid alcohol in diabetes. Now, what is glycemic index or GI? It is a measure of how quickly a food can make our blood glucose level high. Low GI foods increases glucose slowly in our body, and high GI foods increases blood glucose quickly in our body and can make it harder to control diabetes. Factors that affect the glycemic index of a food: ripeness, nutrient composition, and cooking method. Foods high in refined carbohydrates and sugars are digested more quickly and often have a high glycemic index, while foods high in protein, fat, or fiber typically have a low GI or low glycemic index. Although no foods are strictly off limits on the diet, foods with a high GI should be limited. The GI scale goes from 0 to 100. Pure glucose has the highest GI and is given a value of 100. Here are the three GI ratings. 55 or less is considered as low GI foods, 56 to 69 is medium GI, 70 or above is high GI. Examples of low GI foods are most fruits and vegetables, grainy bread, brown rice, fish, egg, and others. Medium GI foods are whole wheat products, basmati rice, sweet potato, table sugar, white rice, and others. High GI foods are flaked rice, crispies, baked potato, white bread, straight glucose, and others. Now, what is glycemic load or GL? It is a number that estimates how much the food will raise a person's blood glucose level after the food is eaten. One unit of glycemic load or GL approximates the effect of eating 1 gram of glucose. It is based on the glycemic index and it is calculated by multiplying the weight of available carbohydrate in the food in grams by the food's glycemic index and then dividing by 100. Now we have done the topic diabetes. Thank you everyone.